A new shift of power in the DC universe. My ass! What is up, everybody, and welcome to my review of DC's latest Black Adam. Now, this is a movie that I feel like we've been hearing about for well over a decade. It was one of the first movies that was announced on the big screen at Comic-Con whenever the DCEU was really starting to get its wheels turning, and it's just been in development hell ever since. It's been hinted at and teased at, and The Rock has swore it was coming for years and years and years and years and years. And now it's finally upon us. The movie's actually real. Now, I'm a big fan of the DC universe. Some movies are better than others, of course, just like in the Marvel universe, but I do tend to prefer DC just having a little bit more of an edge and having a little bit more of a variety so far in the types of films that they've been doing. But the previews for Black Adam did not sell me. They all kind of looked like a somewhat generic film that looked like it probably should have came out 10 to 15 years ago. It looked like The Rock's personality was kind of the biggest thing on display, and everything else was just kind of suiting that. And so I walked into this film with very low expectations, just hoping to at least have a decent escapism time at the movies. And unfortunately for me, my first instinct was correct with the trailers. If the trailers pumped you up, if that looked like a blast of a movie, then you're probably really going to enjoy this. The trailers are very indicative of what this movie is. For me personally, this type of comic book film, I'm just really burnt out on. I feel like I've seen it a dozen different ways just in the past couple of years. And so with all that being said, let's start off talking about the positives of Black Adam before I get into all of my issues. And I will say, The Rock, despite the fact that I'm getting a bit burnt out on the types of characters that he plays, he's always good at what he does. There's a very specific brand of action, brand of humor, a brand of personality and charisma that he brings to his characters, to his movies, and he's very consistent with that. He's somebody that knows his strengths, he plays to his strengths, and oftentimes, because he is arguably the most powerful actor working in Hollywood today, the movie production will be completely focused around harnessing those strengths. And this is one of those films. And I liked seeing him play a character that has a little bit more of a dark edge. Not quite enough, I'll get into that, but a little bit more of a dark edge, a little more of a villainous flavor to him, because I miss when he used to do things like that, like, Doom, despite the quality of that movie, Driver, Snitch, movies that weren't just action blockbuster spectacle. And so I liked seeing him do a little bit of a different thing here. I also really enjoyed the Justice Society, namely Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, who is my James Bond. I think that Daniel Craig's slate of movies are certainly the best, and he's arguably the best Bond, but anytime you're going to say the name James Bond to me, I'll always picture Pierce Brosnan. That was just my era. And I love seeing this guy. Every time he comes back into a movie, I get a little bit excited. The kid in me is like, it's James! And so he was really good here. He was probably the best part of the movie, honestly, as his character. A very similar character to Doctor Strange. I know historically this character was written before, created before Doctor Strange. They had Twitter making sure everybody knew that before they saw this movie. But it's that type of a character, mind-bending, can kind of look into the universe. And it was an interesting play on that type of superhero character. And Pierce Brosnan just brings a really cool personality to it. So his relationship with Hawkman, his kind of banter back and forth with Black Adam was really entertaining, and I could almost just watch a movie just with that character. If we get anything out of this movie, I'll take a Dr. Fate film. And I also had a decent time with Hawkman. He's kind of the more loudmouthy of the group. Well, he's very much the leader. He's the moral compass to a degree, but he's also the one that just gives a lot of shit to Black Adam and has most rivalry with him throughout the movie. And so their banter back and forth was also pretty entertaining, as well as his banter with Atom Smasher and Dr. Fate. The female character kind of felt like she kind of got shoved to the background a bit, so I really don't know the name of her character besides her powers, which looked like they had to do with the wind and certain elements, but she was certainly the one that got the least amount of focus in the group. And even Atom Smasher, to a degree, there's a certain shtick with that character that I thought was mildly entertaining. Moving on to the mixed aspects, I'm going to say the action sequences. The action's fine here. The CGI's fine. It's not bad. It's not earth-shatteringly awesome. But to me, while the action is serviceable, while there's plenty of it, and the film's got a very fast pace, like the whole basically middle hour plus of this film is just action set pieces back to back, I kind of feel like it's a style of action that we've seen so many times. You know, you got CGI flying dudes shooting CGI things at other people, explosions and flying, and all the stuff that we have seen over the past 10 plus years with Iron Man and Superman and it's just action sequences that I feel like had no real originality to them. So, serviceable, fine, exciting enough. I just want something new. And I'll also say that the humor was a bit of a mixed experience for me. There's a very specific brand and style of humor that you get from the Rock movies, and it's a very similar brand of humor that the MCU has all but beaten into the ground. Not quite as cringeworthy as that on its worst day, but there was a few running jokes here, one namely with Black Adam kind of trying to find a catchphrase that fits himself that I thought was pretty well done because it had a good payoff by the end and it didn't feel like it was just coming around so many times throughout the movie to beat you over the head. Hello, Thor Love and Thunder. But there was also a lot of other moments of humor that completely fell flat. Now, my theater did not have too many people in it, which is a bit concerning for the box office of this movie. There was probably 30 people. I might even be inflating that a bit. And my theater was silent the entire movie. Nobody busted out laughing. Nobody chuckled. There was no moment in this movie that just united the whole theater in laughter. It was just kind of passable, easily digestible humor that works well enough, but for somebody that's a bit of a hard audience for humor, could have been a lot better. And now moving on to the negatives, and this just felt like a movie that I have seen 30 or 40 times over the past decade, and I'm somebody that I admit fully I am starting to really feel that comic book movie fatigue, especially the PG-13, flashy, colorful, crowd-pleasing style comic book film. You get something a little darker or a little weirder like a Deadpool or a Logan or the Batman, and I really enjoy those because they stand out. But these movies that are just kind of like that movie-making machine type product where it's just flashy action and big movie star and PG-13 humor, I'm just so burnt out on that style of comic book film. 15 years ago, this movie would have kicked ass. I would have loved it. I would have jumped out of my fucking seat and been like, hell yeah, baby! Black Adam's here to stay, bitches! Now I watch it and I'm just like, you got anything new for me? Because I've seen all this shit before. Even down to the point of just The Rock's movie personality. Now, I love The Rock. He's one of those celebrities that, of course, I don't know him, but from what I have been able to see from his social media, from videos and interviews, he seems like one of those people in Hollywood that's very humble and genuine and loves and cares about his fans and tries to put them first. And so I respect the hell out of the dude. Whether or not I love every movie he does, he's one of those guys I'll always root for until I'm given a reason not to. But even with that being said, I just feel like all of his characters now are just kind of the same. And I don't know if it's because he's picking the same movies or if it's just because his personality is so huge and dominant that all of his characters become The Rock rather than The Rock becoming their characters. Now, even this one that's going to have more of a dark edge, and there's been all these, darker posters and teases and social media posts and the power hierarchy in the DC universe is about to shift and all this foreboding language about how dark and awesome of a character this is. It just feels like a Rock action character that happens to kill people, but it's PG-13, so it doesn't feel like he's killing people. It's a joke. And so you have the style of comic book movie that it is that I'm just really burnt out on and not impressed by anymore and barely am really entertained by anymore because it's just so wash, rinse, repeat, paired with a performance by an actor that also feels a bit wash, rinse, repeat for me lately. And so every aspect of this movie, just about with the exception of the charm of seeing Pierce Brosnan on screen, just felt like something that I have seen and experienced so many times before. And so I was literally bored through most of this film because everything happening I could have saw coming in the first 15 minutes because I've seen it happen. And that's going to depend entirely on you. If you're somebody that loves those type of movies and you don't have any fatigue and you love what The Rock does, then you're probably going to eat this up and say it's a blast and it's so much fun and it's exactly what the DC Universe needs and one of the best movies of the year. And you're not wrong for thinking that. But for me, as somebody that is just burnt out on everything that this movie has to offer you, it did nothing for me. There's really not much of a story in this movie. The basic plot of it is that you have Black Adam that gets unleashed by this woman who's looking for this MacGuffin item, this artifact. And then Black Adam's out there, the Justice League wants to put Black Adam back, and you have these random mercenary characters trying to get this MacGuffin item from this woman, and all three are just kind of circling around each other for an hour and a half. And so despite all of the Rock moments and the action sequences, there just wasn't a whole lot to really latch into with this movie. There wasn't really a whole lot of a narrative to get invested in, or a third act conflict to get invested in, or a problem that needs to be solved that's all that compelling. It was just kind of an excuse to get The Rock on screen as Black Adam. While most of the characters in this film, namely Black Adam and the Justice Society, were very entertaining, I thought every other character in the film, like the actual human ground level characters, were all pretty lackluster to terrible. You've got this main female character who's the one who kind of unleashes Black Adam, and she's supposed to be kind of the spokesperson for this city that the Black Adam is supposed to be a protector of, and I just never really got engaged with her story. It just kind of felt like an afterthought. Her boyfriend or husband or whatever that dude was that kept singing the same song and that running joke, he was there just to kind of be a joke. Her son was cringeworthy as hell. I did not like that character whatsoever. He was fine at first, but the more he kept showing up and the more shit they kept having this kid say and the more placement in the story that they gave him in the back half of the film, I just hated. And the villain of the film, absolutely forgettable. I mean, just generic mercenary character that suddenly gets powers in the last 15 minutes and you know he's going to get defeated. Now, obviously, they have teased and they have basically wrote it on the wall in gigantic letters, and comic book fans already knew anyway that certain characters are destined to go against Black Adam, so we're going to get a bigger, more substantial, more memorable fight with Black Adam and other characters at some point. But I just wish some of these movies would focus more on their villains, because to me, having a really good, compelling, and a matched villain for your hero of the movie, or even anti-hero in this case, it can make or break your film. And it, again, felt like a complete afterthought. Let's make The Rock awesome. Everything else, we'll figure that shit out. And going along with what I just said about the future of Black Adam in this universe, I really hate the fact that they decided to switch the marketing campaign of this movie to just basically telling the world what the big surprise at the end of the film was going to be, what the post-credit scene was going to be. And I'm not going to say it in case you were lucky enough to stay away from the entire press tour of this movie and didn't hear The Rock say the same phrase in 17 different interviews. That is not much of a hint. It's basically saying, hey, this motherfucker's showing up. I hate the fact that we had that. I mean, that could have been such an awesome surprise. That could have been such a gigantic, like, spirit lifter for so many people in the theater. Even people like me that wasn't really digging the movie. That scene, I would have been like, oh, fuck, well, that was a cool note to end on. But I knew that walking into the movie. That's not how you do this. That's not how you do a big surprise. That's not how you do a post-credit scene. That's supposed to be a surprise that gets you amped up and pumped and makes you on the edge of your seat for the next movie. Not walking into it going, all right, let's get this 2 hours of shit over with so that I can see that one dude show up. All in all, guys, this movie was fine. Like, it's not a movie that offends me. It's not a movie that I hated watching. It's not a movie that I would say, don't go watch it. If you were pumped at the trailers, or if you tend to enjoy the Rock movies, or if you've enjoyed most superhero films over the past decade, 15 years, definitely give it a shot. You might like it more than I did. But for me, I just want something more unique nowadays. We've had so many comic book properties on movie theaters, and now Disney Plus especially is just oversaturating the fuck out of these types of things that I need something more. Otherwise, you're just not going to get my interest. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, please click over here for the rest of my 2022 new release reviews. And I'm also going to put my review of The Batman from earlier this year, which is still my favorite film of the year. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.